Tonight, on The Big Story, the Senate promises a 2027 budget responsive to basic needs of Filipinos and free of controversial insertions. Lawmakers detail how they can make this happen. Leptospirosis cases continue to rise in some parts of Metro Manila. Now, the health department has put up interventions to avoid straining hospital resources. The Senate President says his colleague, Lauren Legarda, is now dealing with a, quote, serious illness. The senator's whereabouts abroad remain unknown. And it's now a race against time to find survivors in Nepal after raging floodwaters almost wiped out whole communities there. Good evening, I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. We begin with senators pushing for a more transparent and back-to-basics 2027 national budget. This includes stronger measures to prevent corruption. Mobile journalist Julie Baisa with tonight's top story.
The Senate Committee on Finance has begun discussing the proposed 2027 national budget amounting to 7.2 trillion pesos. Finance Secretary Frederick Go, Acting Budget Secretary Kim Robert De Leon, Department of Economy, Planning and Development Chief Arsenio Balisacan, and Bangko Sentral Governor Eli Remolona were on hand to brief the senators. They make up the Development Budget Coordination Committee or DBCC. At the outset, Senator G.V. Ejercito, Chairman of the Finance Committee, said the upper chamber is eyeing a back-to-basics budget for next year. This means national funds going to basic needs of Filipinos: food, health, education, infrastructure, livelihoods, and security.
Definitely, we will give priority to healthcare implementation this time. At the very outset, the Senate budget deliberation, I want to make our positions clear as Chairman of the Committee on Finance. Again, reiterate that healthcare will be among our highest priorities. As the principal sponsor of this measure, I remain committed to seeing this promise to be fully realized.
Ejercito assured that in scrutinizing the proposed spending bill, they will not allow the waste, misuse, and corruption of public funds to happen again.
Sa bawat ahensya ng gobyerno na haharap sa atin, simple ngunit mahalagang tanong ang nais nating masagot: kailangan ba talaga ang pondong ito? Makatuwiran ba ang halaga? Handa na ba ang proyekto? Kailan ba ito matatapos? At sino ang mananagot kung hindi ito maipapatupad? Lagi na nating ikonsidera ang necessity at feasibility sa pagtalakay ng budget. Hindi po ito para lamang pahirapan ang mga ahensya.
The Senate vows monitoring and prohibition of any last-minute insertions at the Bicameral Conference Committee or BICAM. Live streaming of the BICAM deliberations will continue. The Senate Budget Transparency Portal will also be maintained. Ejercito said public trust in the budget process and in the government needs to be restored.
Sa usapin ng korupsyon at maling paggamit ng pondo ng bayan, naririnig namin ang inyong mga hinaing at naunawaan namin ang inyong mga damdamin at panawagan para sa transparency at gobyernong mapagkakatiwalaan. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Finance, hindi natin papayagan na ang pondo ng bayan ay muling masasayang, mawaldas at mapunta sa maling mga kamay.
Moreover, the call for more disciplined spending comes as the country's economic growth is low to 2.3% in the second quarter, the weakest pace since 2021. The proposed 2027 budget is already 6% higher than this year's spending plan. With fiscal space remaining limited, Ejercito said the government must distinguish between spending and spending that produces results. Education again gets the lion's share of 7.2 trillion budget. DPWH comes in second, followed by Health and Security. Over the lower house, the Department of Public Works and Highways is already requesting additional funding, including 83.84 billion pesos for locally funded flood control projects. In 2026, this item received zero or no budget in light of the flood control scandal. DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon says they intend to tighten their oversight of how this fund will be used.
Ang problema lang talaga, marami kaming kailangang ayusin ng mga napag-iwanan nitong mga pambababoy nitong mga projects sa all over the country, no? Especially in Bulacan.
Out of the 20,000 flood control projects, the agency has also reduced this number to 11,000. According to Dizon, they have removed duplicate projects in different regions. This is to avoid project overlapping in flood mitigation. The controversial leadership funds under the agency have also been scrapped. The DBM likewise ordered that under the Basic Infrastructure Program, all projects worth 5 million pesos or less be removed. The agency also needs to limit the LDL number of initiatives handled by district engineers and regional directors. For its part, the palace also assures that the 2027 budget is free of discretionary funds. These funds are allocated for optional projects, emergencies, or small-scale uses where leaders have the authority to decide how the money is used.
Walang discretionary funds sa 2027 budget. Lahat ng mga nakalista dyan ay may program of work. Halimbawa, pagdating sa DPWH, lahat yan may dokumento, lahat yan may programa.
Kapatid Mobile Journal Julie Baiza, We Are One News.
Senator Robin Padilla dismissed the criticism on his recent statements about the use of aliases. In a message to reporters, Padilla believes the online bashing he's been getting is coming from trolls and not from netizens. The lawmaker went on, he is happy for the so-called trolls, quote, as long as they have food to put in their mouths. Padilla added he is only accountable to those who voted for him. He also refused to stop talking because, and we quote again, magugutom ang mga troll kapag tumigil ako. Yesterday, on day 19 of the impeachment trial, Padilla invoked Philippine history to justify the use of fictitious names in the confidential funds of VP Sara Duterte. He argued that aliases had historically been important in protecting people involved in underground movements. But Palace Press Officer Claire Castro somewhat schooled Padilla on his analogy.
Ang mga bayani noon, kahit gumamit ng pseudonym, ay alam nating totoong tao. Sa ngayon, ang mga resibong naipakita, hindi natin alam kung totoong tao o sila ay multo or mga ghost beneficiaries. Ang mga bayani noon, itinatago ang pagkakakilanlan para sa bayan, pero yung iba ngayon, itinatago ang pagkakakilanlan para sa bayad.
And joining us tonight to discuss the national budget is JC Punungbayan of the UP School of Economics. Welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Ses, and thanks again for having me.
JC, just today, the Senate indicated that it wants a budget that would be more people-centered. But before we go there, I'd like to discuss first the confidential funds. Because, well, at the impeachment trial of the VP, this is front and center. But other agencies also get confidential and intelligence funds. And in this year's budget, how much is allocated for confidential and intelligence funds?
So when I look at the documents, says the total for both of them would be more than 10 billion pesos. So in the grand scheme of things, of course, with the 7 trillion pesos for the total budget, 10.7 is actually a drop in the bucket. However, of course, with the very tight fiscal space, meaning that the government is spending a lot more than it is earning, every peso really counts.
Right.
And I think the disheartening facts that are emerging from the impeachment trial is that these confidential funds can really be abused a lot. And it's high time that we really scrutinize them. And in fact, in the past years, we have been saying that there should be some mechanism to be able to at least audit somehow these funds, even if they're so-called confidential. And I think we need to pressure, I hope that the senators and the lawmakers in general realize how important that task should be.
Right. What is your thinking? Should these funds be limited to security agencies? Are they justified to be given to civilian departments of the government?
Mm-mm. So I think when you look at the history of these funds, there's a very strong justification for them to be limited to agencies that are really engaged in law enforcement, for example, or those with security mandates, for example, the PNP, the AFP, as well as the PIDEA for drug issues. But for example, for the Office of the Vice President or for the Department of Education, it's a huge question mark. And I think the original sin comes from Congress itself, which you will remember authorized essentially the spending on these dubious items. And again, if you will recall in the past budgets, since the start of the Marcos administration, it has become quite perfunctory for Congress to approve the budgets of the OP and the Office of the President and Office of the Vice President. I think it takes them a minute or two at most to approve these budgets at the committee level. So I think we should learn our lessons from that. We should open up these proposed budgets.
Right. And for 2027, 42% of all confidential and intelligence funds is going to the Office of the President, which has a huge allocation. And in fact, 44% of its total budget is from confidential and intelligence funds.
Mm-mm. Yes.
Is that justifiable? I mean, considering what we're seeing in the Senate impeachment trial, how the word confidential is abused.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. So the nation's really focusing on the OVP right now, but I would tend to agree that even the confidential intelligence funds of the OP itself should be scrutinized. And I would assess that this is a legacy of the Duterte administration. Because when you look at the old data, it was really during the Duterte administration that there was a ballooning of confidential and intelligence funds for the OP. And I think the OP kind of got used to these enormous funds, and anyway, nobody cares to scrutinize them. So I think it has become a tradition in a way for the OP to propose these huge funds, and they know that they can get away with these.
Malacanang, for instance, should set the example and forgo these or reduce the amount. What do you think?
I agree because until now we don't also know what's how the OP is spending
Yes.
these huge funds. We have no idea
We
at
have
all.
no idea, and we just saw how it is abused, at least at the office of the vice president, that nobody knows. Nobody knows except supposedly Colonel La Chica. I'm sorry, we went to the impeachment trial, and the VP herself. Nobody could say, and all these acknowledgement receipts, we don't know if there were real people, what information they provided, etc.
Mm-mm. Yes, I think the OP is just being more discreet about it. The OVP, I think they have really tested the limits of sanity by putting all those fictitious names in the acknowledgement receipts. And also, I think that the OP can find just some justification because they control the executive, and under them, essentially would be the PNP, the AFP, which have legitimate uses for these funds. So I think it's a combination of these factors.
So, if they're saying they're different from the Duterte administration, why are they copying what the previous administration did? Nakasanayan na ganun. Parang
Yeah, yes, because when you look at the historical trends for the confidential and intelligence funds of the OP, they haven't been really reduced. So in a way, it's a copy paste from the previous year's budget, and the Duterte administration started the ball rolling in that sense.
I find it particularly scandalous that 42%, nearly half of the budget of the Office of the President, is made of confidential and intelligence funds.
Yes, I'm flabbergasted by that as well. And just like you, I have no idea where that money is going to. I think for this year they sort of justified it by saying that we're hosting the CN, for example. There could be some security concerns, but for 2027, we're no longer hosting a CN. But I think the chances of them letting go of these huge funds will be quite small.
So perhaps more scrutiny is required when both houses hammer out the budget. But let's go back to the intent of the Senate to really more focus on the social aspect, for instance, health. Uh, how can they do this if the budget doesn't necessarily focus on this?
Mm-mm. So we note, says, from
Or
the
the
previous
GAA given by the NEP rather.
yes,
Go
exactly.
ahead.
So when we look at the patterns emerging from the past few years, so they propose some amount for ayuda programs like AIX, like MAIFIP, in the NEP, proposed by the executive, and then every year the actual amounts in the GAA in the final budget are maybe double or almost double of these proposed amounts. And we're expecting more or less the same pattern. For example, for the AIX program, they have proposed 33 billion pesos. But if history is any guide, then we expect that to maybe double as well. The same goes for the many other ayuda programs like Tupad and MAIFIP, really in reinforcing the ayuda culture that we have right now, the ayuda economy that some people talk about, and also in the run up to the 2028 elections. So, I think there are these patterns, these regular patterns that really necessitate scrutiny from monitoring the NEP and then all the way to the GAA. But I think we don't have a shortage right now of trackers of the budget. Everyone is scrutinizing the numbers. But I think more importantly, we need to pressure the lawmakers to really stop these practices which erode the fiscal space of government.
JC, how do we do that? Because last year there was also the same scrutiny. Well, it led to more open process. However, it went on as usual. Like you said, all the soft pork doubled or even tripled. So how can we this early prevent that? Because some NGOs or civil society went to the bicameral conference, but they were told it was too late. So how early should the process begin, and how can legislators be pressured?
Mm-mm. So that's what's so worrisome, says, with the current deliberations, because as early as now, there are indications that Congress is less willing to include civil society as early as now at the level of the NEP and at the very beginning of the budget deliberations in Congress. So that's very worrisome for many of the advocates, the budget watchdogs. And we have to note as well that their participation in last year's deliberation was almost a token participation, because their participation was really focused at or was concentrated in the earliest stages. Like they were given some time to air out some issues, but as the process rolled on, their participation kind of waned. So I think this is a recurring problem, because it's really difficult to push against the huge incentive of lawmakers to insert these anomalous funds. And remember, the pattern from last year is that they shifted away from hard pork projects like roads and flood control projects, and then into soft pork projects. So in other words, the lawmakers seem to acknowledge that there's intense public scrutiny, but what they just did was to shift the ayuda into some other form that is not so obvious. And that's precisely why watchdogs are saying that we should pay attention, for example, to the local government support fund, which has really ballooned.
Remember, the president in his SONA said that he would give the PhilHealth more funds so that our people don't have to line up and get signatures and rely on MAIFIP. Do you see that in the NEP?
In the NEP, the proposed budget for the DOH's MAIFIP was 24.2 billion, which is exactly the same, by the way, to the proposed MAIFIP fund last year. So they almost copy pasted it. And again, if history is any guide, last year what they did 24.2, and then it doubled, more than doubled to 51.6. So maybe
After
there's after the
deliberation, yeah.
entire, exactly. So if this pattern persists, then maybe that's the more or less the same thing that will happen for next year's budget. It might double again
So
or
anong
even more.
so anong ibig niyong sabihin? Why does he have to say this in the SONA that, it will be the PhilHealth that will take care of this and digital so that there will no longer be a need to go from office to office, etc.
Oh
Was that
yes,
just
I was
parang ano ba yan? Nagsabi lang siya pero wala talagang intention na gawin?
I was baffled as well, Ses, because together with some colleagues, were doing a study as well on AIX, which is whose budget has also ballooned in past years. And from all of our interviews of beneficiaries, as well as even the SWD staff and the other people, they're really saying that MAIFIP is still well and alive. So when I heard from the SONA that from President Marcos that he said that, oh, there's no more of these guarantee letters,
Yes.
I knew that was a blatant lie.
Oh, so nabudo lang tayo dyan.
I think it was a populist SONA. So
Yes.
it's in the language, in the rhetoric as well. So I think on some level he wanted or needed to say that because of political reasons. But the fact is, MAIFIP remains.
But we have new people in the Department of Health and PhilHealth. And, the health sector welcome the new appointees. Do you think this will mean reforms?
I hope so. The new head of PhilHealth happens to be an acquaintance of mine. I know her to be a really good person, a really competent person. No
Beverly
questions
Ho is
there.
very well regarded.
Exactly. And I really hope that the reforms can push through. But remember that any individual person, even however good they are or however well-meaning they are, they can only do so much. Because again, remember, we're talking about institutional reforms. So we have to understand the incentives faced by all of the people who are involved in these processes. But I'm really holding out hope that Bev Ho, as well as the new health secretary, will be able to do good.
So going back to, you're saying there's not much room for civil society to participate because of the restrictions now. What else can be done? What kind of pressure can be done?
Well, I think the intense rains that we have seen in the past couple of weeks are a constant reminder or a recurring reminder of the flood control scandal that erupted last year. So, in that sense, it's not leaving the minds of Filipinos anytime soon. The fact that billions, even trillions of public works funds have been wasted, and of course, the worsening of the effects of climate change. So I think that is a yearly reminder for us of the intense need for smarter infrastructure when it comes to these calamities that occur yearly. So in that sense, I think that's a pressure on politicians. But I agree that there needs to be a stronger voice from civil society, and I'm still holding out hope that the House leadership will accommodate them and willingly listen to them.
And we're relying heavily on you, the budget watchdogs, to alert us. Yeah, because it's a specialized discipline.
Yes, thankfully there are many data geeks in the Filipino population, and more are being involved in this. So many of my friends have created online budget trackers. We don't have a shortage of these trackers anymore. The data is readily available. And to be fair as well to the government, like the DBM, they have been sharing these data. But again, just because these data are shared doesn't mean that corruption will go away. Transparency is just one step in the budget process that needs to be improved.
What other red flags are you seeing aside from the soft pork? Where else could there be, you know, what areas are vulnerable to corruption?
Yes, so I'm looking now at one of the charts we have done, and the local government support fund is a major red flag because this points to the direction of the executive controlling discretionary funds that it can give to local leaders. Based on woolly or spurious criteria. So the proposed budget for next year for the local government support fund is almost 59 billion pesos, which is the same as the one in the GAA last year, whereas the proposal last year was just 16. So from 16, it jumped to 58. And then now the proposed is 58. So they almost copy-pasted it. Apart from that would be the financial assistance to LGUs or FALGU, which the proposal last year was 5, and then it ballooned in Nagaa to 37. And then now the proposal is 37, exactly 37. So in other words, I think they are, I'm trying to think of what's happening in the heads of these people.
Election.
Exactly, elections.
Yeah, this is
And then
how
yeah.
they'll garner support locally from local government units.
I think so too, and in cahoots with the local district representatives. And I'm also I have a theory as well that this is the mechanism of President Marcos to reward the lawmakers who voted in favor of impeachment. Because remember, there was a record, I think
Right.
250 lawmakers who voted for impeachment, even more than last year. And now it's the time for the president to reward all of these lawmakers with all of
Okay.
these local funds
But
projects.
JC, something made the news yesterday. Naga was given, I think, 500 million
Yes. Yes.
in local government support funds. So what do you make of that?
Well, of course, there are rumors that there seems to be a brewing alliance between President Marcos and Naga City Mayor Lenny Robredo. So yeah, I think there are political considerations there as well.
Sana naman naglagay sila ng maybe if this LGU, particular LGU or LGUs that will be given this fund have achieved some kind of success in some endeavor. Diba? Sana may scoring system or may
Yes.
way to evaluate. Meron
So,
ba? May nakikita ka?
That's also a major deficiency, says, of the budget process, because ideally the budget should go to tested and proven programs and policies. So in other words, the impact evaluation, if there's a project, what's the impact of that project?
Yeah.
If it's impactful, then give it even more funds next year. If it's not so impactful, then why give it so much funds? So in an ideal universe, that should be the criteria for giving out all of or allocating the budget. But we're not in that universe. We're in this universe, and political considerations weigh heavily.
Okay. So in that, one final question, in the local government support fund and financial assistance to LGUs, have they listed particular LGUs or it's just an amount? It hasn't been itemized yet.
If I get it correctly, these are lump sum funds, says. So in other words, essentially pork funds. So and I think the lawmakers are hoping that nobody really looks into these. I think there there are guidelines when it comes to the types of projects that can be funded by the LGSF. However, they're not really followed, and it's still very much discretionary.
Okay, so this bears watching.
Correct.
Yeah. We thank you for your time and we'll continue to get updates from you and other watchdogs of the NEP. Thank you so much. That
Anytime,
was
sis.
JC
Thank you.
Punong Bayan of the UP School of Economics. You're watching The Big Story on One News. When we return, we have the aftermath of a catastrophic flash flood that struck the Nepal and China border.
Alam ko yung kanyang sakit. Even prior to this, no, we're personal friends as well. No? So, nasabi niya yun na meron siyang sakit na seryoso. Yung mga ganitong sakit, kailangan din seryosohin talaga.
Senate President Win Gatchalian there saying colleague Lauren Legarda is sick, but declining to say how serious her health condition is. What Senator Gatchalian can confirm, Senator Legarda has refused to accept her salary as a senator. Senator Legarda has extended her medical leave from the upper chamber for a fourth time. She's believed to be somewhere in Europe with son, Batangas Congressman Leandro Leviste. Both lawmakers are the subject of an ombudsman preliminary investigation over alleged ghost solar projects. Leptospirosis cases continue to spike more than a week after the monsoon-induced flooding in Metro Manila. As of today, August 27, the city of Manila has recorded 401 patients, 155 of whom are admitted at the San Lazaro Hospital. 9 have already died, while severe ones that require hemodialysis are at more than 20. Ages of patients in San Lazaro range between 19 and 35 years old. The health department has provided the hospital 170 additional beds and even tents to accommodate leptospirosis patients. Health Secretary Edwin Mercado assured enough medical equipment and medicine on standby in other DOH hospitals. That's as the number of leptospirosis patients could still rise given the incubation period of the bacterial infection at a maximum of 3 weeks.
Kami na po ang nakikipag-coordinate dito sa iba't ibang hospital dito po ng DOH. Kagaya po dito sa San Lazaro, Jose Reyes Medical Center, pati po ang Fabella Medical Center. Meron din po tayong pag-coordinate halimbawa po sa NKTI, PGH. So yun po ay network ang ating ginagawa po at may inter-hospital referral po tayo. So ngayon po ay may sapat po tayong kama at meron pa nga po kaming mga buffer beds na available. At tayo nga po ay gumagawa rin ng paraan na mabilis po yung turnaround ng ating mga pasyente.
Now, a warning before we begin this next story. What you will be seeing in a bit are graphic and disturbing images. Viewer discretion is advised. Over 200 are dead after a massive flash flood hit the Nepal-Tibet border yesterday. Reports said one Filipino is among the 1,500 still missing after the deluge. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza with the report.
People ran in all directions at Girong Port along the border of Tibet and Nepal. All of a sudden, an enormous tsunami-like flood engulfed whole communities. Murky waters swallowed the entire crossing and all other structures on the deadly floodwaters way, including a parking lot and all the cars in it. This video captured the raging water out of a river, which inundated homes and swept an entire bridge. People immediately scrambled to higher ground as water engulfed the very roads they were on. In this home's terrace, dust first clouded the area, followed by the deluge. Even the dam wasn't spared. The raging water did not just bring mud, but brought with it trees and other structural debris. Aerial footage after the catastrophe showed Rasuwa district almost wiped out. The border between China and Nepal, formerly a road network, turned into a body of water. Initial estimates showed the flash flooding reached 40 kilometers wide. That's comparable to the distance of Manila to Tanay in Rizal or Santa Rosa in Laguna. As of 5 p.m. Philippine time, the death toll is at least 270, with around 1,500 reported missing. Among those still unaccounted for are tourists and foreigners, all pilgrims to Tibet's Mount Kailash, a sacred site for Hindus. Reuters and the Nepal Tourism Board also reported one Filipino missing. News 5 is still awaiting a statement from the Department of Foreign Affairs. The region's steep valleys are economic lifelines and travel corridors, but precarious ones when disaster strikes. Weather was fair before the flash flood happened. The deluge was triggered by a massive ice and rock avalanche in the Himalayas. The impact temporarily restricted a local river before sending a wall of water downstream. This generated a seismic force equivalent to a 5.2 magnitude earthquake. In the Philippines, President Bongbong Marcos extended his condolences and prayers for Nepal and all those affected by this devastation. Leaders from Australia, Japan, Canada, and Sri Lanka have also expressed deep condolences and offered help to track missing citizens and clear debris. India and China have already launched immediate rescue operations, while the United Nations announced that teams and logistical supplies are actively mobilizing to support isolated areas. The International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies has also released $1.4 million in emergency funds. These will go to clean water, blankets, and medical kits. Kapatid Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Malacanang's tone slightly shifted on the plan to ban Meta in the Philippines. Earlier, the government lamented Meta's slow response in taking down violent videos. Now the palace cites information from the DICT that Meta has been cooperating.
Real talk. Lahat naman tayo gumagamit ng Facebook. Lahat naman tayo gumagamit ng Messenger. So, ang huling impormasyong ibinigay po sa atin ay May mga pagkakataon na kapag kinakailangang i-take down ang isang post na nagpapakita ng karahasan, fake news, ay tumutugon naman ang Facebook.
Meantime, Castro challenged Davao Representative Pulong Duterte to submit to authorities the documents he says he has on the flood control projects in Davao City. Congressman Pulong had earlier said these documents will prove all projects under his district are complete and have all been accounted for.
Siya po yata ay pinatawag sa ICI ay hindi po siya nagsumite ng anumang statement at anumang mga dokumento at ito ay kanyang binaliwala. So itong mga dokumento sinasabi niya ay malaking tulong para malaman natin kung ang mga flood control projects na naisagawa sa Davao City ay hindi sa dokumento lang, kung hindi talaga nag-i-exist.
In other news, President Bongbong Marcos was conferred an honorary Doctor of Laws degree by the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila today. The honoris causa recognizes Marcos's efforts to advance economic development, improve access to education, strengthen public health services, and promote social equity. Marcos also said PLM holds a special place in his family as First Lady Luis Araneta Marcos once taught at its College of Law. This is a big story on One News. Some senators give their take on Rule 18, barring them from talking about the merits of the Duterte impeachment case.
Kinausap ko bigla yung sarili ko, may nilabag na ba ako? Yung 30,000, kayang-kaya ng asawa ko yan. Oo, pero yung ma-ethics ka, siyempre, mahirap yun.
Sa usapin ng korupsyon at maling paggamit ng pondo ng bayan, naririnig namin ang inyong mga hinaing at naunawaan namin ang inyong mga damdamin at panawagan para sa transparency at gobyernong mapagkakatiwalaan. Bilang chairman ng Senate Committee on Finance, hindi natin papayagan na ang pondo ng bayan ay muling masasayang, mawaldas at mapunta sa maling mga kamay.
Walang discretionary funds sa 2027 budget. Lahat ng mga nakalista dyan ay may program of work. Halimbawa, pagdating sa DPWH, lahat yan may dokumento, lahat yan may programa.
Actually, lahat ng mga ginagawa namin ngayon, we consult with Project NOAA. No, and I think those projects that we put in here are really in flood-prone areas. No? Ang problema lang talaga, marami kaming kailangang ayusin ng mga napag-iwanan itong mga pambababoy nitong mga projects sa all over the country, no? Especially in Bulacan.
Senator judges are backing the Senate Impeachment Court's resolution to strictly enforce the sub judice rule, which limits public comments on the merits of the case. For Senator Judge Robin Hood Padilla, presiding officer Chis Escudero made the right call. Escudero had reminded senator judges, the prosecution, the defense, and even Vice President Sara Duterte not to discuss the case publicly. He let earlier violations pass but will now enforce a two-strike policy. First offense gets a warning or admonition, while second and subsequent violations will carry a fine of up to 30,000 pesos. An ethics complaint for lawmakers and a possible Supreme Court or IBP case against lawyers.
Napaka-ingat ko at yung mga kasama ko sa ibang judges din. Ako'y sumasaludo kay Senator Chis Escudero. Pero sana mas maganda kung napangalanan niya. O sana napangalanan kung sino yung naglumalabag. Kasi kinausap ko bigla yung sarili ko, may nilabag na ba ako? 30,000, kayang-kaya ng asawa ko yan. Oo, pero yung ma-ethics ka, siyempre, mahirap yun.
Senate President Win Gatchalian also backed Escudero's ruling, calling it comprehensive and well-researched.
I think it's for the good na
Yes,
maging
yes.
mahigpit talaga sa
Oo,
subject.
oo. I think it's for the good kasi nga nakikita ko rin yung mga interviews ng mga lawyers on both sides. At tempting kasi yung camera eh. Hindi rin magiging fair sa respondent kung sa court nga hindi ka nagsasalita. Sa labas naman inuulit mo yung mga sinasabi mo. So it's a very fair and comprehensive ruling at sinusuportahan ng mga senator judge.
Meanwhile, Lanao del Sur Representative Zia Alonto Adyong said talks are underway on possible changes to the House prosecution team following a stricter sub judice rule.
May possibility po na may mga nakuupong prosecutors ngayon ang maaaring magbitiw ng kanilang position bilang membro ng prosecution panel at mag-act na lang as isa sa mga spokespersons, no. So maaari din po na magdagdag ng spokespersons, no. Pero definitely yung mga nagsasalita na po for the House prosecution panel hindi po mababawasan.
On to the economy now. Quite big developments on this front today, from policy rates to the Philippine peso taking another beating. The full story from mobile journalist Daniel Dayal.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has raised key rates by another 25 basis points, extending its tightening cycle as inflation risks remain elevated. The move brings the target reverse repurchase rate to 5%, the overnight deposit rate to 4.5%, and the overnight lending rate to 5.5%. The Monetary Board said the preemptive hike is needed to anchor inflation expectations, as headline inflation is projected to reach the 4% tolerance ceiling for both 2026 and 2027. Despite weak first-half growth, the BSP expects the economy to strengthen in the second half with support from fiscal measures. The Philippine peso has hit a new record low against the US dollar on Thursday, August 27. The local unit shed 23.8 centavos to close at 61,888 to the greenback from Wednesday's 61.65. The figure tops the previous recorded low of 61,847 versus the dollar set on July 24. This development came as the BSP raised its inflation outlook, citing risks from El Nino and potential minimum wage hikes. The ASEAN Plus 3 Macroeconomic Research Office has cut its Philippine growth forecasts through 2027, citing weaker consumption and subdued investment. AMRO now sees the Philippine economy growing 3.4% this year, down from its previous forecast of 4.1%. For 2027, it lowered its forecast to 4.8% from 5.5%. AMRO lead economist Jinho Choi said higher inflation will weigh on private consumption, while subdued investment will also constrain growth. Kapatid Mobile journalist Daniel Dayaw, we are One News.
In sports, Gilas Pilipinas kicks off a crucial Window 4 of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers at the SM Mall of Asia Arena. Now fifth in Group E with a 2-4 record, Gilas faces a must-win stretch to keep their qualification hopes alive. Head coach Tim Cone confirmed the national team will deploy an all-Filipino roster. Gilas will battle Jordan this Friday, August 28 at 8:30 p.m. After that is a high-stakes showdown against regional powerhouse Iran on Sunday, August 30 at 8 p.m. Catch both games live and for free via the One Sports YouTube channel and the Signal Play app. And finally, for our big picture tonight, Alex Ayala is now immortalized on the iconic tenement basketball court in Taguig City. The mural comes after the Filipina tennis star hit a new career high of number 18 in the WTA rankings. Ayala's mural is an ode to her historic first WTA title after she beat world number 3 Jessica Pegula in Washington, D.C. The court is best known for featuring basketball legends LeBron James, Phelan, Jordan Clarkson, and the late Kobe Bryant. Meanwhile, the 21-year-old phenom is still putting in the work as she trains with tennis icon Venus Williams ahead of the U.S. Open. The two previously teamed up in Bad Homburg and at the Canadian Open. Now Ayala awaits a singles draw where she's set to enter the Grand Slam as the number 17 seed. Those are the big stories this Thursday, August 27. I'm Ces Orenia Drilon. Kapatid, we are One News, your side, all the time. Good night.